welcome back to our show. Yesterday we talked a little bit about the Sonics creating community and how sports and community really are tied in together. And a lot of people tend to think that a city is a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger when they have the big four sports teams, or I was quickly reminded we also have a soccer team. But something that also brings a lot of people into a city, of course, is jobs. And when you have a lot of people coming to a city for jobs, well, that means there's a lot more competition for some of the good ones. Kevin Daniels joins us, a resume specialist, really in the Northwest job market, who's become the choice of top executives at Microsoft, Amazon.com, Starbucks, Boeing, and others. Kevin, how are you, buddy?
Doing good, Ben. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, and you must be doing real good as a Baltimore Ravens fan.
I'm doing well. I'm excited. I actually was looking online right after the victory against the Patriots for Super Bowl tickets and Super Bowl packages. Discovered it was going to be probably between about $9,000 and $12,000 for my wife and I to go.
Yeah,
I was very excited about it, and she was not.
Yeah, that's why you got to find your buddies.
That's it.
So it's only about $4,500 to go with your buddies.
And she's actually become a big football fan herself, but the price was not. She was not agreeable to the price.
You can do it a few different ways, but you got to if you're gonna go, you got to go.
Right.
That's it. You don't want to spend all the time in the car driving in and out. Anyways,
there you go.
Well, a lot of people, I guess, don't want to spend a lot of time looking for jobs. Most people want to find the right one quickly. And a lot of people maybe are coming out of old jobs. Maybe they're, taking some time off and now are re-entering the job market. Are there some big tips that people really need to consider as they re-enter the job market or maybe even enter it for the first time?
Sure. Yeah, and these are a couple of the situations that we encounter on a pretty regular basis. So it's either somebody who's been not working for a number of years. A very common one there would be someone who's been raising kids, or maybe they had a sick relative, mother or father or something, who they were caring for the past couple or 3 years, and they're concerned about the gap in employment. So that's one issue. The other one that's even more common is just someone who's been working for the same company, let's say, for 10, 12 years, and there hasn't been any reason for them to update their resume in 10 or 12 or 14 years or something like that. And they look at it and they realize it's got a real antiquated look to it. And then they just kind of wonder, what can be done to get me sort of a little more modernized.
And so why don't we take a step back? If you're looking at your old resume, how would you know that your resume definitely needs updating? I mean, there's something people see like, wow,
Great question. Yeah.
I know how to use the internet. You should probably upgrade.
Well, the first thing I do is I have people send their existing resume that they've been using, or just the one that they still have.
Sure.
And sometimes it still looks like it was typed like on a Smith Corona. Or you see like an objective statement, which is really kind of old-fashioned these days. Or you see, some of the content is kind of like shifted over a little more to the left than the paragraph above it. Things are sort of out of place. It just looks thrown together and homemade. Mm-hmm. And you just, in this day and age with all the competition, like if you're sending that out there and the next 3 or 4 that they look at are perfectly lined up and professional looking and done in a really nice put together template, it's just not a good thing.
It doesn't even get read, does it? I mean,
probably not. Yeah. So you really have to do the things that might be annoying, they might be tedious, but you've got to sort of dot all the T's and cross the I's that are necessary to get the best presentation out there. Mm-hmm. So, it is obvious. I mean, you look at it immediately and you think, okay, this has not been touched in a while.
Just aesthetically.
Right. And I mean, just as one example, the objective statement is not, or really shouldn't be used anymore because it tended to focus on what the individual was looking to gain for themselves. So it would say like, marketing professional seeking an interesting job with a dynamic company where I'll have room for advancement and growth.
That's exactly what mine said. That's funny.
Okay, whatever. But anyway, That it's very, very common and typical, but that the reader of the resume wants to know a lot more about. They might be slightly interested in what your career goals are, but what they really want to know is how you're going to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really needs to be a profile, a professional profile instead of an objective, where the objective is sort of implied, but the profile brings out the key differentiators in the individual and the ways that they're going to help that company become better at what they do.
You know, and there's I guess there's a big point to that in really helping that company know who you are and what you can do for them.
Right.
Because as much as a company, as you get into it, they're going to have company culture. They're going to want to, of course, take care of their employees.
Right.
In some way, at this very beginning part, they might be going through 100 different resumes or 100 different people,
Right.
and alleviating this is kind of what I want from your company. Like, I understand you want that.
Right.
We're looking for one person to hire out of the 100.
Exactly.
What are you going to do for us first?
Plus, it's a matter of making yourself seem different than the other candidates. If you give like a generalized, blanketed statement like that sounds like everybody else, right away you're not really differentiating yourself. And then remembering that that's the first part of the resume that the reader looks at. You want to try to capture the attention of the reader. It's a sales document.
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying to get the person interested in reading. You're trying to sell them the idea, essentially, that they should want to read the rest of the resume, or at least some of the rest of the resume.
So what are some of the, if that's a big mistake, what are some of the other big tips?
Well, one of the things when folks come that have not had to write a resume in 12 years or have been out of the workforce, the first thing is almost like to sort of approach it from like a project management perspective and like scope, like assessing the scope. So what are you trying to accomplish here with this resume? What do you want to be doing? This is like a very obvious thing, but you've got to figure out, am I happy in the industry that I'm working in right now? Is this the type of job I still want to do? Do I want to do a different job? If I want to do a different job, does that job require some skills that I don't quite have and I've got to take a course somewhere? And if so, where should I take that course? What course should I take? So it's just that initial assessment, because obviously you can't create a document that's going to have any clarity if you yourself are confused as to where you are in your career. So if you do have confusion about what you want to be doing right now going forward, there are a number of different places on the internet where you can get some resources to help you sort of do a self-assessment of your skills. And that would be in lieu of like hiring a career counselor. I mean, this is like the way that you could do it on your own on the internet.
I think those are huge because I use like disc profiles, right?
Right.
And so you have like a Myers-Briggs here, which is more of a what your job, what maybe your job aptitude is.
Sure.
But also being able to tell your employer kind of what your strengths are in a very clear, concise manner.
Absolutely. And these things can help you do that because you want to be able to pinpoint those things. And when you're presenting like your brand, so to speak, to that employer, you want to be able to be very definitive in what it is you do well. And hopefully those things will be the things that they are interested in. But one of those places, it's called the Strong Interest Inventory, or SII. It's just there's a website which will give you, it's like a questionnaire that will basically score you and will point you in sort of a right direction if you really are wondering what you should be doing or what would be a good place for you. That's one of them. You mentioned Myers-Briggs. That's another one. Career Ability Placement Survey, or CAPS is the acronym, is another place on the internet which can direct you in that way.
Well, and I think that probably gives a manager who is hiring a very concise way to go, oh, that's kind of what this person is about.
Right.
Versus
Sure.
an entire paragraph. Kevin Daniels joins us, owner of Northwest Resumes. Kevin, what about when people are out looking for jobs? I mean, what should they be searching for?
In terms of, right, so when they actually go out and they're looking to find a company, or an organization, so it's, and this gets in a little bit to like the interview preparation too. But it's amazing how often folks don't use websites that are right there on the internet for a company to research that company. Very obvious thing, but you should definitely go on that website. Really dive into the website and get as much information as you can about that company. If they have a media site, a lot of times there'll be like a media tab for the company, and there'll be a collection of articles that have been in magazines or wherever that have been written about what that company is doing or the industry that they're in. Is a great way to figure out whether you might be interested in working there or whether you might have unique skill sets that apply to something that they're doing. So just like a great example would be, let's say it's some company that's recently went into a new niche and they started making a new product or developing a new product. You might have specific knowledge of having worked with that for 10 years with another company. Boom, you go into that interview, you're able to jump right on that issue and say, hey, just FYI, I've got some expertise in this particular area.
It sounds to me a lot of this is kind of bringing all of the stuff you've done to a point that really is going to benefit yourself.
Right.
When you're discussing it with, a future employer. And I mean, I guess to that point, you look at the old resumes. When people have, I worked at this restaurant and then I worked at this, little, flower shop or whatever. And now all of a sudden, you're looking for like a corporate job. Sometimes do you think that can that hurt somebody? Like, okay, well, I kind of see where they came from, but there's no real legitimate experience rather than maybe staying away from that and
Sure.
And
yeah, that's a really good question, because that's another thing that comes up all the time. Let's say you know that you have the skill sets in something, but you've never actually done that before. That's when you definitely want to move away from the reverse chronology traditional format of resume and go with a functional format or a hybrid functional, which means that basically it takes your experiences out of context and focuses on those experiences and accomplishments and sort of illustrates that, no, I haven't specifically worked in this industry before, but these are the 5 or 6 or 7 things that I've done that are really nice accomplishments that illustrate I have exactly the same skills, albeit in a different context.
And again, it takes that research, as you talked about, which is what it's going to take in order to determine if you do have those skills.
Right.
I mean, that seems to be one maybe missing point is people kind of throw themselves at the wall and see if they stick.
Sure.
So, Kevin, we do have to go to break. Thanks so much for joining us. Stick around. Love to get some more opinions from you here at the end of the show. Again, Kevin Daniels, owner with Northwest Resumes. I'm Ben Brash, and you're listening to Brashonomics. We'll be right back.